Hi, I'm Ruban Phukan. I'm the co-founder and CEO of GoodGist.
Ruben, thank you for joining us on this episode of Brains Byte Back. I usually like to start off the podcast by asking our guests more about their backgrounds, and I'm particularly interested in yours because I understand that you've been in the AI and machine learning space for quite some time. So, with that in mind, can you share with us your career journey up until now?
Yeah, and thanks, Eric, for having me on the podcast. It's great to be here. So, in terms of my journey, I've been in the field of AI machine learning for over 20 years. I started my career as a data scientist at Yahoo. This was even before the term data science existed, right? So we were known as data researchers back then. And I got the amazing opportunity to work with the co-founder, David Filo himself, and got to learn a lot in terms of how organizations like Yahoo, with the amount of data that they have, right? How do they manage scale and how do you leverage that data to gather insights that can make really impactful business decisions? And I'm very proud because a lot of the research that we did back then added to like almost hundreds of millions of incremental revenue opportunity for Yahoo. And this was great because I was like fresh out of college and just entering into the industry and got the exposure to work on such large scale and large amount of data. And like I also keep talking about is that working directly with the co-founder of a business, you get bitten by the entrepreneurial bug as well. And so I started my first startup back in 2005. It was a company called Bixi. And we were one of the first vertical search company for the Indian market. And what we were doing back then is basically trying to use AI to create a user persona profile of what are the kind of jobs that people look for. So people who are in a particular industry, what kind of vacations that they would like to go for, what kind of properties do they buy, what kind of, I mean, what kind of shopping interest do they have, right? So it was basically creating an interest profile of the user across different verticals so that we can recommend useful information, right? Rather than having to go on the web and get like ads from all over the place. So we are saying that let's create an interest profile and give users very specific information when they're searching for it, right? This was acquired by the Naspers group of South Africa, who was starting a greenfield venture in India called Ibibo. So they acquired Bixi, and the Bixi travel vertical uh, eventually became big. It transformed into what was called as Go Ibibo, which is the number two travel destination in India. And that was acquired by Make My Trip, which was the number one travel destination. So after that, I started my second company, which was an enterprise AI company catering to the industrial IoT, right? So this was like back in 2012. And the idea is that when industrial IoT started happening, there are a lot of machine data that was coming in, right? And most of the businesses, even the large manufacturers, right, they understand text data, they understand all other business data, but machine data was hard to interpret. So that is where we actually implement a natural language interface that we also had patent for to help businesses query and get meaning out of machine data. So this was acquired by Progress Software of Boston in 2017. So one of the common theme that I have seen throughout my career when we work with large organizations or when I was doing my startups as well is that technology keeps changing rapidly, right? So, and that requires, especially, I mean, more than any other domain, now almost every domain is technology powered domain. So everyone has to keep learning. But in the technology world, we always have to keep learning new things, and more so when you're working on a new space, right? A new domain, like we were doing in the industrial IoT world, right? Or when a company acquires another company, and there are like different technologies that are getting merged, and then of course both the organizations have to learn about each other's technology, identify compatibility and things like that. Now that learning cannot happen through the traditional means, right? So you cannot ask someone saying that, hey, go on to this online learning platform and learn about how to apply this technology, because most of this technology is very unique to the business, right? So the technology stack is unique to the business. What you need to learn to really make those integrations happen or apply technology is very unique, right? So it requires a completely different way of learning. So that was the genesis of GoodGist. We said that how do we enable that, right? So when it comes to learning technology in a generalized way, right? So let's say you're trying to learn about AI or trying to learn about cybersecurity and all of those at a very generic level, then of course the traditional online learning platforms were great, right? But when you are now trying to apply it at work and you need to get down to the specifics, which is very unique to the business, very unique to the technology stack that business owns, right? So then the learning cannot be in a generalized way. It has to be highly personalized to the individual, to the role that they're playing, and to the requirements of the role, right? And that is what GoodGist does, is that it helps businesses uh, um, basically deliver very, very specific learning modules to individuals, right, in the organization based on their work requirement. So this is basically making learning blended with work versus treating learning as a whole separate thing, right? So yeah, so in a gist, that is my personal journey from Yahoo days all the way to GoodGist.
So right now, GoodGist is your current venture. You were always in the data field. In a way, it was kind of the consumer aspect of it. Then you went into the industry aspect of it. Now you're looking at serving what you realize is a niche because there's a difficulty in the style that people learn. So when I was going through your website, which I was telling you earlier that I think it's super well designed, it actually speaks to the product itself in terms of the layout and explaining what the product is exactly. How do you sell this idea to most people, the idea of good gist? Because it's not just like it's kind of a concept.
Mhm.
So how do you really just sell this idea when you're first talking to potential new clients?
Yeah. So I mean, when we talk to customers, we try to, even before we talk about what GoodGist does, we try to understand the main pain point, which is how are they learning new technologies and applying it at work today, right? And while we were even doing the research for GoodGist, we spoke to a lot of professionals in the industry saying that our online learning, the way that it's delivered, or corporate learning, the way that it's delivered today, is that helping them with the job, right? And this is becoming increasingly a problem today because it's not just technology is evolving rapidly, but what that rapid evolution of technologies is changing the business landscape in a way that organizations are now forced to execute much faster, right? So if you look at even larger enterprises who would typically, let's say, launch products in years, right, or would take years to launch a new product, now are forced to do it in like months, right? Because that is how things are moving. So which means that everyone in the technology space not only have to learn fast, but have to apply that learning fast, right? So which means that they don't have the luxury to spend like say months, right, trying to learn about a new technology research about things, and then apply that learning for work, right? So that is what we start with, saying that given that technology landscape has changed, given that now businesses are mandated to deliver much faster, how are they solving it? How the real the people who are actually working on delivering, how are they solving this within that organization, right? And a large part of the responses that we got is that while online learning in the current form helps them form a general idea about technology, it's not how they are actually applying it for work, right? So while it comes to work, applying it for work, they have to either search for things specific to their needs online, then aggregate that information and apply, right? Now, this is super time consuming, right? Because if you look at the stats that most organizations talk about, that almost 1/3 of employees' day goes in searching for information online, right? Now, while that feels like work, it's actually not work, because when like 1/3 of the day is just spent searching and not really applying, it is a significant loss in productivity. When you look at the hourly rate of paid knowledge professionals in the industry, right? So their time when it goes in looking for information doesn't help. The second challenge is the knowledge management. It's not about learning, is that once they gather that information, how is that information shared within that organization? Most people, when they like say search online, find the solution, they just apply it and move on. Now, 10 days later, they have to refer to the same piece of information, or someone else in the team have to refer to the same piece of information, right? Which means that they have to repeat that search, which means that they are again wasting, I not say wasting, but they have to go through the same cycle of spending time to get to that piece of information. So these are the challenges that we talk to organizations on, is that how are you managing knowledge, right? How are you managing learning on the flow of the job, right? And most of the time, there is no concrete answer. They're saying that, yeah, I mean, we are doing because there's nothing else. I mean, it's a pain that you have to endure, right? So that becomes the starting point of our conversation of coaches, saying that what if there was a solution, right? What if AI can help in that, right? Where you don't have to look for information, you can just tell the AI what exactly you need to learn to get your job done, and instead of spending hours or days and weeks learning about new things, how about how would it change their work if they can do it in like matter of minutes, right? Or instead of having to spend hours to do a research of technology, research of market trends, landscape, competitors, right, customers, if they can boil that research down into like just minutes by leveraging AI to do all of those work, right? What would that do to their productivity of an organization? How would that help? And more often than not, we said that, oh, okay, yeah, we didn't know that we could do that, right? So we never ever thought about that. So that becomes the starting point of the conversation. And then it goes deeper into understanding what their requirements are, and then how can GoodGist fit into their work schedule.
I think the way that most innovators' minds work is that they identify a problem and they're looking for a solution. And nowadays, especially for AI, the solution is efficiency. So
Mhm.
AI, we're finding it in a lot of different industries because it's making workflow more efficient in all these different type of industries in a lot of different ways. And by the sounds of it, it sounds like what you're trying to do is make learning efficient for individuals and for teams as well. So that way they
Right.
don't spend too much time, repeating the same searches, so it kind of, at the end of the day saves them time on their workflow.
Yeah. So
But you, but it
yeah.
sounds like you also have a style, because when I was looking at the website, there's styles in learning. And one of the things that stuck out to me was micro learning. And I saw that microlearning is proven to boost retention rates by anywhere from 25% to 60%, which is a
Correct.
lot. And I remember hearing this term in the past. How does microlearning, do you believe, help retain information, much more than regular learning?
Yeah, so the concept of microlearning is very deeply connected to cognitive science, right? So when as individuals, we are trying to process a lot of information together, right? And in a very short period of time, we cannot consume a large amount of information at once, right? And if we try to do that, the amount of information that we'll remember and retain goes drastically down, right? And that is usually the problem today, because um, we are in a world where technology has induced a sort of a digital ADHD, right? In everybody. So the attention span has gone down. So we need to really get to focusing on the information that is required at that moment in time to get the work done. So that is where microlearning plays a key role, is that it actually distill down the information that you need to learn, or that you need to make a decision at any given point of time, into smaller bite-sized chunks, right? And then if someone has to dive deeper into a topic, they can progressively do that rather than having to consume a lot of information at once, right? And that is also tied very closely with the problem of information overload that is happening today because of the digital world. And now with AI also enabling anybody to become a creator, anybody to become a writer, right? So there is a lot of information that is being added digitally, added online. So having to parse that information all at once and to make decisions becomes very hard. So this is the whole idea of microlearning and AI enabled microlearning, where it can help, rather than expanding, it can help distill it down to very specific pieces of information that is easier to consume.
Ruben, so myself, I consider myself a visual learner. If I go into GoodGist, do I have that option? Is it asking me what style of learner I am? How does that work exactly in terms of knowing that it's presenting the information in the way that I know retain it much better?
Mhm. Yeah, so we deliver the learning in multimodal way. So whether you want to read a piece of information, or you want to listen to it more like a podcast or an audio format, right? Or some learners are more visual learners, like you've said, that they want to watch it into a video format, right? So the platform dynamically converts that information into all those different modes, and it additionally translates it to the language of the learner, right? So if someone prefers to listen to it or read it in a native language, right? So they have the option of doing that as well.
Ruben, that sounds fantastic. And I wanted to ask you as well, what is the future of GoodGist? What are the plans? What's in the pipeline down the line?
Yeah, so we want to get more specific in terms of how do we solutionize it for different industries, right? Because if you look at the learning needs in a technology company, may be very different from a learning needs of a healthcare company, or the learning needs of a financial services company, right? And like you have said, that there are different kind of learners who have different preferences in terms of how they learn and consume information better, right? So we are doing a lot of research around applying basically cognitive science, applying understanding learnability of different kind of users, right? And across geographies, right? Because again, how people learn in a particular country it differs from countries to countries as
That's a very
well.
good point.
So
Yes.
yeah, so I mean, one of the big focus of us going forward is that how do we understand all those nuances and then make the learning much better to individuals that helps them uh, move forward faster, right? Because our primary goal is not just deliver learning for the sake of learning, right? So it's more about how do we convert that learning into application at work, right? So, how do we make people more productive in getting their work done? And for that, what works well to blend learning into the workflow, right, of individuals. So that those are some of the areas that we are actively working.
Have you ever thought about bringing this to the education space?
We are, in fact, and that's the other extension because
Okay.
I mean, when we look at this as a learning technology, we don't want it to be limited to only workplace, right? And and it's a great point that you mentioned about education because there is always a gap between education and then developing skills for work, right? Because education today that helps build that foundation, but then it's because the way that curriculums are built and how they evolve, there is always gap with where the industry is at versus where what is being taught at most of the institution. So while we are not I mean, as a replacement to traditional education, we're trying to augment that to help bridge that gap between learning in a workplace, learning in a educational institute to helping the students be ready for the job, right? And bridging that gap of what skills are required uh, to make them progress on the work as soon as they enter into the industry better.
Yeah, because I think it would be valuable for education systems to review this style. I mean, eventually, I think they're going to look at AI as an option to bring into the classrooms, like how they've done with computers in the past. So now that we're seeing the power of AI as an assistant with learning and with a lot of other industries, then who's not to say that down the line, we'll see products like yours in the classroom.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and we are actually running a couple of pilots already
Amazing.
with certain institutes trying to figure out how this can help students in their learning journey more in terms of uh, ability to follow through their classroom learning with this as a means of recalling information better, right? Because while they learn in a classroom on a more broad base, how can micro learning help them to retain that information better and help them apply that information better? Right? So we have already started doing a few pilots around that.
Ruben, thank you for taking the time to speak with me. Before I let you go, is there anything else that you wanted to mention to our audience that maybe we didn't touch on?
Yeah, so I think it has been a pleasure speaking with you, Eric, and
Likewise.
thanks for having me on the call. I think we are in an exciting phase of technology because it's technology is no longer a tool, right? It has become like an intelligent partner. And as we harness the power of that intelligent partner more responsibly, learning how to do it well is important. Now we are all continuous learner in our journey because of the nature of the world that we live in. So I think using technology to help us learn better about technology and getting us informed is one of the crucial thing, right, going forward. So we are really excited about that, and we're really excited in contributing to helping that.
I'm looking forward to see where GoodGist is in the near future. Thanks for joining the show. it's people like you that are kind of carving this path of technology and its growth. And we always love hearing directly from the great minds like yours. I appreciate it, Ruben. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much, Eric.